So, coordinate geometry, the circle question. You're given 3 points and asked to find the equation of the circle. So first thing you should do, well, there's actually sort of 2 ways to go about the question. There's one quite short way using the coordinate geometry, the circle equation. So you're given this in the log tables. The formula for a circle. Okay. Now you know these 3 points. We'll go through both ways, but the first way, we know these 3 points lie on that circle. So if they lie on the circle, they must satisfy the circle. So what that means is if you were to sub them in, x, y, plus 2g by 0 plus 2f by 0 plus c is equal to 0. If you sub it in, it should make sense. It should satisfy the equation. So we know c is equal to 0. Okay, straight away. So before we go any further, always write out what we know. We know c is equal to 0, so we can leave it like that, right? Ignoring the c. Now if I call this one x and y, if I were to sub in 6.5 for the x's, the y is going to be 0, which is really nice. 2g by 6.5 plus 2f by 0 is equal to 0. I can find 6.5 squared, which is equal to 42.25. 0 squared 0 plus 13g is equal to 0. 13g is equal to minus 42.25. And then g is equal to minus 42.25 over 13. And you get g is minus 13 over 4. And last of all, we want to go and find, using this, x and y. So 10 squared plus 7 squared plus 2. Now we know what g is. Minus 13 over 4 times 10 plus 2f times 7 is equal to 0. Multiply it out. 100 plus 49 minus 20 minus 65 plus 14f is equal to 0. That's 84 plus 14f is equal to 0. 14f is equal to minus 84. F is equal to minus 6. Finish it off. X squared plus y squared plus, this was minus 13 here, plus, now it's going to be minus 13 over 2 x minus 12y is equal to 0, from having subbed the f and the g into that. Okay, so really nice question. It should be noted that these are actually quite nice points. If you don't have a point that is 0, 0, and this 0 here really helps us out, what you could end up with is 3 simultaneous equations, because you'll have an unknown g, an unknown f, and an unknown c. But you'll have three unknowns, but you'll be able to find 3 equations using each of the points. So if you have 3 unknowns and 3 equations, then it just turns into an algebra question, very similar to the likes of on paper 1, a simultaneous equation question where you have 3 unknowns and 3 variables. Okay. Another way of approaching this question, so I'm going to actually write this all on the side, okay, is, well, it's easier to show you first of all, is to think of it like this. so we've been given 3 points, but imagine we just had 2 points that are on the circle. Okay, so we know if we were to join the 2 points up to form a chord, find the midpoint of the chord. So for example, find the midpoint between 0, 0, 0 and 6.50. Then we could find the perpendicular line to it. Okay, so a perpendicular bisector to a chord. Bisector means it has to go through the halfway point of the chord. Perpendicular bisector. What we find is all perpendicular bisectors of chords go through the center of the circle. Okay, so imagine we had the equation of this line right here. Okay, imagine, and we can actually find that. It's not that difficult to find it. You could also find the perpendicular bisector of the other two. Imagine if you found the perpendicular bisector between B and C. Then you would have another line that we know for a fact would have to go through the center. Okay, this line, the perpendicular bisector, would have to go through the center. So we have 2 lines that go through the center. If you were to find the point of intersection between the 2 lines, well, then you would have the center. Then you'd be able to find the radius by getting the distance from the center to the radius. So it's way longer, but also works out. Okay, so midpoint of AB, slope of AB, perp slope, equation of perp bisector. These are all things you need to go and do. I will actually talk about them. Because A to B is horizontal, we know that the midpoint pretty quickly is going to be half of 6.5, which is 13 over 4, 0. The slope of AB is 0 because it's horizontal. The vertical slope, we don't really need to worry about that because it's a vertical line. So what's the equation of a vertical line? It's just going to be x is equal to 13 over 4 because the perpendicular slope is undefined. So that's the equation of the perpendicular bisector of AB. If we find the midpoint of, let's see, A to C. Okay, midpoint of A to C is 5, 7 over 2. I'm just going to hurry through that because I'm sure you can use the midpoint formula. We need to find the slope of AC. Again, using the slope formula, we can get the slope of AC is 7 over 10. The perpendicular slope, perp slope, is minus 10 over 7. Okay. And then the equation of perp bisector is going to be y minus 7 over 2, so y minus y1 is equal to m, so 10 over 7 by x minus x1 minus 5. Multiply all of that out and we get 10x plus 7y is equal to 149 over 2. And now we want to find where these two intersect, these two lines intersect. Okay. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we can just set x equal to 13 over 4 because we know it. So 10 by 13 over 4 plus 7y is equal to 149 over 2. Which is 65 over 2 plus 7y is equal to 149 over 2. 7y is equal to 149 divided by 2 minus 65 over 2 is 42. Y is equal to, obviously 6. So we know the center is going to be 13 over 4, 6. its centre. To find the equation of a circle, we need the centre and the radius. So how do you find the radius? It's going to be the distance between the centre and any one of those 3 points. I'm going to choose 0, 0. So I'll go x1, y1, 0, 0, which was A, x2, y2. Using the distance formula, the distance between the two of them. So 0 minus 13 over 4 squared plus 0 minus 6 squared. The radius is going to be square root of 745 over 4. And now we can use the formula that we're given in the log tables on page 19. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So it's x minus 13 over 4 squared plus y minus 6 squared is equal to square root 745 over 4 squared. And let's just tidy it up a little bit. 4 squared. You can multiply it out if you want. Minus 6 squared is equal to 745 over 16. Both answers are acceptable. You can leave it here, here. In the marking scheme, they accept that this is a perfectly valid answer. I would generally say to multiply it out. I'm not, just for time's sake, not going to multiply it out. I trust that you can multiply out brackets yourselves. Points for the question: 0, 3, 5, 8, 10. I'd highly recommend that you know that way, but also being able to figure your way around a way like this is really, really important as well. And what did I say? The perpendicular by 13 over 4. It's just missing there. Next question. Find the angle BCA. The angle BCA, so that's the angle at C. And give your answer in degrees correct to 2 decimal places. So from the log tables, we know that we have the formula on page 19 for the angle between two lines. Okay, so that formula again is tan theta is equal to plus or minus m1 minus m2 all over 1 plus m1 m2. So we're going to need the slope between B and C and A. C and A are A and C, and we already know that from up here, I think it is. Slope between AC, 7 over 10. 7 over 10. We need the slope between B and C. So 0 minus 7, 6.5 minus 10 is equal to 2. So we have both slopes. Doesn't matter what order we put them in. So we want the angle, so we don't know theta. Plus or minus 7 over 10 minus 2. 1 plus 7 over 10 times 2. Tan theta is equal to plus or minus 13 over 24. And we only really need to worry about this plus or minus here if you're looking for a slope. We're not looking for a slope, so it doesn't really matter to us whether we use the plus or the minus version of it. So just to show you, if you left it as the plus, it would be minus 13 over 24. The minus would be plus 13 over 24. Theta is equal to tan inverse minus 13 over 24. Theta is equal to tan inverse 13 over 24. If we'd used the minus to get a plus, then we get theta is equal to 28.4, which is theta to the closest 2 decimal places, for 4 degrees. Or if you chose the negative 1, you'd get theta is equal to minus 28.44, but there's no such thing as a negative angle in this case, so we change it just to 28.44. It doesn't really matter, you get the right answer at the end. There is a second way of doing this question. You've got your A, B and C. think about it. You could find, if this is A, B, and C, you could find this distance, you could find this distance, and this distance, using the distance formula. You want this angle. So what have you got? You've got a triangle, and you know 3 sides, so you could use the cosine rule, making sure that they are opposite each other in the cosine rule. C squared is equal to blah 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 cosine C. Okay. In general, not the hardest of questions. First part was 10 marks. The second part is a 15-mark question. I'll get you the marking scheme now. It was 0, 6, 9, 15. So quite nice. A lot of marks going for this coordinate geometry, the circle question. Really, really nice question overall.